So excited to get into this. And we started with our favorite show. Well, my favorite show, anyways. I'll let you speak, but yeah, this one to me got me in that mindset of, yeah, we are hip hop historians, aren't we? What do you think, my man?
Absolutely, this is where it all began, right? The hip hop evolution.
Yeah, man, it's such a good show, and for anybody who is into hip hop, and not even hip hop, just music, just in general, of how did something start?
This is the making of, it's more than just the evolution. It's like the birth of hip hop. Like,
Yeah.
before this, there was nothing. So this is how it happened. Yeah.
For sure, man, and I love that it's Shad who's a Canadian doing it. You know what I mean? It just kind of shows that, yeah, as we'll learn, that hip hop was in the U.S. and it was in New York and that kind of stuff, but it's now so internationally known that I think he even said that he took it in university, like a hip hop class.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that you can be more than just a hip hop enthusiast like ourselves, but you can actually get a degree in hip hop these days. Like that's amazing.
That's next level. And Shatner was mentioning that he got into hip hop like in the 90s. He mentioned some of the albums he listened to. It's just interesting. I wanted to ask you, man, like, what got you into hip hop, and what, like, do you remember some of the albums or the artist, or was there like a one big aha moment, like this is for me, or like walk us through how you got into hip hop?
Definitely for me, my introduction, because you can imagine, like, here I am growing up in like the country, like a very small town where I grew up, and I was out in the boondocks part of it. Like, there wasn't like a whole lot of intercity influence in my growing up. So my first real introduction would have been through my older brother bringing stuff home. So I remember I was probably like 14, 15, and heard Bone Thugs and Harmony was the first real hip hop that I heard. And man, like, just to, how they rap, like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like, it's so fast, it's so, but like, it's more than just fast. It's like, it's so well put together. There's a message behind it, So, no, that was my first introduction, and then after that, it was kind of like a self-guided tour through the wide world of hip hop. I would definitely say that like Wu-Tang Clan and Run DMC were like probably some of my heavier hip hop influences. Definitely Notorious B.I.G. On and on. But yeah, that's kind of my boring intro into hip hop. How about yourself?
Not boring at all, man. Bone Thugs and Harmony, that's not boring at all, and I feel like that self-directed or self-guided tour is sometimes the best way to do it. Yeah, for me it was again an older brother, and there's a bit of age gap between me and my older siblings, but it was the Beastie Boys. He loved the Beastie Boys. We grew up in like a rural area too, like out in the country, small town, and not a lot of hip hop or rap in the near vicinity. But my brother, for whatever reason, was one of the few people who did appreciate hip hop, and it was Beastie Boys, and then I went on a self guided tour as well because that's really all he listened to was in terms of rap. And then my guided tour kind of went backwards because young kid didn't have a lot of money in terms of putting it towards records. So all I got was stuff I could either download or get really cheap at bargain bins, and it was all like late 80s stuff. So like Grandmaster Flash, Kool D, Big Daddy Kane, that kind of stuff, late 80s, early 90s. And that's where I got it. It was more old school, or I guess it's I guess old school's a bad word nowadays, but it was more of the foundation, as we're learning right now, of hip hop. So I don't think I got into Dre and Tupac and Biggie until after they passed, which is a strange one. But yeah, no, that was kind of my boring take on it.
Yeah, no, and I feel like that's like the typical entry, at least in like where we live. We're Southern Ontario, Canada. Like, it's not like we're in a huge hip hop area, but I feel like that's one of the main gateways into hip hop through this area would be Beastie Boys, because you're talking about like predominantly white culture. So that was really how I would say how white culture got into hip hop. You know what I mean? Like taking that rock rap like combo, and that's getting radio play, not like other hip hop stuff would be, in this area. But like that crossover, I think that's pretty common, as an intro.
That's a great point, man, because I do enjoy the Beastie Boys, but there are a lot of other hip hop artists, who, I'm not going to say better than, but who deserve radio play as well, and just wouldn't get it up in this area just because it wouldn't be popular, right? So they play what's popular, and I think that mix of rock and rap, like you said, hits it on the head, and I know we'll get deeper into it as we go on, but like there's even now a rap country kind of fusion going on right now that's kind of bringing in new hip hop fans to the genre too. So I mean, it's breaking barriers. And
that's right. Yeah, the new crossover there is kind of a shock, right? Like, who would have saw that one coming? But you're right. Like, it's just another way to cross over, and I think, like, as we've seen from the early beginnings to now, this is something that's always changing and like molding to what society needs at the time.
That's a good take, man. That's a good take, and I think the first fusion I can think of, and maybe society needed at the time, was Walk This Way with Run DMC. That one, even in the music video, was them breaking down barriers, right? Like, it was actually breaking down a wall where, hip hop was looking into rock and rock was looking into hip hop. Next thing you know, you have Beastie Boys, and next thing you know, you have the Transplants is another band I can think of that's rock rap, and those are some of the most well-known bands.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Anywhere you can take down a barrier is a good place. And yeah, they were taking a literal barrier down. Yeah, you're right, man. I remember that video. And that's another one of those big moments in hip hop too, like where you do get that message through different genres, right? And who better than to bring that over to rock than Run DMC, right?
No, absolutely, man. And yeah, absolutely. And we can get into it. We probably should introduce ourselves. Taylor with the Dacoda Pile. Yeah, we watched Hip Hop Evolution, now on Netflix. Season 1, Episode 1 right here, and The Foundation. Were you surprised when the first place they started was New York?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, right? Because, again, I think it's coming out of a necessity to bring cultures together, because, you've got the disco hall, and that's where everybody is going to right now, right? Like, we're talking late 60s, early 70s era in South Bronx. That's where everything's happening, right? So, but who's there? We're talking about inner city. So it's like it's the inner city people, which is predominantly, black culture, and then the people, from uptown, you got, and then you got your downtown people, and so everybody's meeting up at the club, though, right? That's where everybody's coming to. And so, you got these disco parties, and it's just natural that you want everybody at the party to be feeling it. So, it's not a surprise. As much as it is, it's not a surprise, right? Because these people, they're spinning these records, and, oh, well, my boy Kool Herc down in the Bronx there, he's spinning these little records, and he's breaking them up in the middle. He's just taking the break out of that, and then his boy Kool Herc is over here talking some bullshit over top of these beats, right? So, no, I think it's really cool how that all happened, and that's like the busiest space to be working, right? Like, New York was where it was happening, so it's definitely it's no surprise that that's the birthplace to me.
Absolutely. Like New York, I thought I was always going to be there, because I still think they have like the most hip hop artists per like square foot. You know what I mean? But you're right, man. Like the disco is where everyone's at. Everything's happening there, and I think the combination of like the actual Bronx is burning, and I think you and I both did some research. Mainly you. You're the research and history king. But actually, like landlords burning the buildings because they could get money off of that, and all the people in the building, the tenants, would get out and now have to find a new place and start a new life. But it was just a terrible time. And like you said, at least Kool Herc and Kool Herc, you could argue, are the first hip hop party, right? That they're well renowned for the first hip hop party, but it was out of necessity. Nobody could go to the disco because they didn't want they only wanted if you had expensive cars, expensive clothing, and could get in. So what are the rest of the people going to do, right?
Yeah, it's like a privilege thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And yeah, like I'd love to say that no longer exists, but it's still that privilege, and it's still a thing in 2022, right? So
yeah.
But from that, and one thing that you always tell me is that from struggle and from strife and from like that kind of pain came something that just changed the world, right? Hip hop, rap.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because like this is like, here we are at the beginning, and I love that we've gone all the way back to, just full disclosure, we've gone through this entire hip hop evolution series before, and I'm glad that we've gone back to the beginning, back to the foundation of hip hop, because that's it, man. It did come from necessity. And what it came from was and as we will see as these episodes go and go on into the next season and the next season, it seems like when there is chaos, like when there's something really bad happening, and people are being, subject to all kinds of traumas that I can't even imagine, because I'm not in those situations, right? Or you wouldn't be able to imagine because you're not in those situations. These people, they're living through this. Their whole neighborhood is burning down. And, like at one point in the episode, they were saying how it actually looks like a war zone. It looks like where, bombs have gone off, and, like there's fighting in the street, and you got all these street gangs and everything. But out of that necessity, out of that trauma, what do people do? They look for an escape. And it's in trying to find that escape where you get all of these amazing creative people who, you know, just through necessity, they're trying to escape this war zone. They're trying to escape these thoughts, you know, of, you know, everything burning down around them. And what's their escape? It's music. And they come up with this whole new thing. And I think, like I said before, like as this goes on, we'll see that this isn't the only time that, let's say, the pressure was on so much that out of that pressure comes this diamond in the rough. You know, this is just the beginning of that. And I don't even know if you would say that this is the beginning of hip hop. You know, like we could go back. There was the judge.
Pig Meat Markham.
And the judge is coming. Now that, like, you know, if we go all the way back, you could say that is some of the foundations of hip hop. When's that? That's like 1920s, 30s. Yeah. I don't know, man.
Yeah. They were even saying, like, they had some comparisons of, like, you know, some gospel quartets.
Yeah.
Right? Where, you know, they were singing, you know, songs about Moses and Jesus and coming down the mountaintop and, you know, actually making it, like, lyrical.
Yeah.
You know, it's... You're right. It's... Maybe this isn't the first one, because there are so many in the past where preachers and pastors and Pig Meat Markham and a lot of other people are just putting lyrical things together that rhyme and sound good.
Yeah, that rhythmic talking over beats. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And you mentioned, you know, people, you know, with the struggle and some amazing stuff. I think one of the first people they mentioned next was Afrika Bambaataa, right? Where he was even a gang member at the time, right? Like East Bronx. I think he was a Black Spade. I think that's what they call themselves. And then I think it was him who got all of them together, like all the big gang leaders, like the and kind of got them in the gym and got them talking. Right? Is why are we doing this? Why are we, you know, killing each other and not working together and not being in something? And, you know, through that he created the Zulu Nation.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely where the culture began, right there. Like, and I believe Shad even says this in that episode, is, you know, with Kool Herc, you've got the foundation. He's kind of the man who started cutting the beats and using those, or sorry, the breakdown, cutting the breakdown out and using those and spinning them. And, you know, he came up with that merry-go-round technique. And his boy, Kool Herc, was on the mic just chanting stuff. Just, hey, you're double parked out there. And, hey, I think I hear your mom calling. But then Afrika Bambaataa, he really did. Yeah, he brought the culture to hip-hop, right? Organizing in the South Bronx. First off, he's right in South Bronx. That's literally where it's burning. You're right. He's part of the Black Spades and the tribalism of the street gang culture. There at that time, you are talking a war zone. So these are more than just street gangs. I would call these guys militias at this time. And there's people dying in the street. Meanwhile, this guy is able to bring this organization together, this conscious organization together, where they can just talk about, like, you know, in the episode there's these guys, they're yelling at each other, like one gang to another. You can tell because they're dressed up differently. These guys are wearing their Black Spade jackets. These ones are wearing their jackets, and they're yelling at each other. We didn't go into your hood until you came over and shot this guy. Well, we didn't go and shoot that guy until you came into our hood and shot this guy. And they're trying to get down to the bottom of where this all started. Meanwhile, had they not had that platform to discuss this, there's no discussion at all. They're not going to try to talk it out in the street, right? It's just Oh, you shot us, we're going to come back and shoot you, you know? So here we are. This is like the first real organization of people from the bottom. You know what I mean? And I love it because you got all this symbolism. You got this man called Afrika Bambaataa. You've got this Zulu nation that, you know, he's a big imagery that black is beautiful. You know what I mean? Like it's really, that's the beginning of taking black as a bad thing and turning it into a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in the show, they mentioned, you know, one of the hip hop artists saying that, you know, hearing Africa and Zulu, they've been brainwashed. We've been brainwashed to think of Africa and black as bad, right? It's always bad. Whoa, Africa, that's not good. You know, that's not good culture. That's not. And this guy is representing it and so proud of it that he's putting it in everything that he does, that it makes you start to think like, oh, like you said, black is beautiful. Black is proud. This is something to be, you know, happy about. And I love the fact that you mentioned that this was the first platform of discussion. And don't forget, when we're talking about these gangs, these are mainly like young teens to early teens to mid-teens. Like, these aren't grown men. These are kids who aren't even going to see, you know, 20, 25 if things continue this way. So the fact that, you know, he's breaking down these kids and saying, whoa, 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 this isn't their way. And you're teaching them young and understanding them, getting out of the gang mentality and having a discussion is how you solve problems. It's not by getting a gun and shooting someone. It's by discussing it, figuring out, okay, why do I want to do this? Why are we doing this? And then figuring out a resolution, right? Like, that was something I think that was never in people's heads until this time. And once you do get that platform and discuss and break it down, you realize, yeah, what are we still mad about? What are we shooting each other up for? And it's such a good
yeah, and thank God for people like that, right? Like, because you're right. The question is why, and they're all out there with the same answer. You know what I mean? The question is why, but everybody's got their own answer. And here, this is just, you know, thank God for somebody like this who comes along and brings organization, because now I get to hear your why. I get to hear your answer why. And it's the same as my answer why, which takes us from individuals and puts us into a group of common, you know? So, yeah, like, thank God for people like that.
Yeah, the psychology and mentality behind it all is just amazing. Bringing people together and understanding that we're in this together and we shouldn't be fighting each other. Let's fight not necessarily the system, as we'll get to with some hip hop artists later on, but let's not shoot each other. That's not the way, right? And so proud of Afrika Bambaataa. Like, he took these kids who were warring and turned them into, gave them a passion and gave them this idea that there's more to life than just, you know, the next drive-by, right? And you can see the talent of these kids. And I'm going to go off base for a second off this show, because I was listening to a radio program about you know, the gangs and violence and you know, the young, you know, black youths dying, and people are saying that it's not only the people dying. That's not the big thing. It's also the loss of potential. That's something that's never equated into this. Of these kids could have changed the world. These kids could have been a famous musician, could have been a famous artist, could have been, you know, whatever it is. But because they never grow up, because they're dying so young, we lose that potential from them. And it's just something that I hadn't thought about, but it makes so much sense that, like, yeah.
What a great point, man. I actually just got chills thinking about that. You're right. Like, you take this time period where there are all these social squeezes. You know what I mean? Like they're being the people living in this area in this time. They've got this war going on around them, and all of these incredibly talented people are just they're the diamonds out of the rough. They're just polishing themselves up during this time period. So yeah, like, what a good point. What if, one stray bullet took out Kool Herc? What if one stray bullet took out Afrika Bambaataa before these things happened? What would life be like today without that? Without that conscious organization, without that bringing the foundational pieces together. And those are just the people we know about. So the people that they did lose along the way, yeah, what were they going to do, right? Dang.
Yeah, it was a heavy thing I was listening to, and then when it took it, like you, I got chills. I was like, whoa. We could have just lost the next Mozart. We could have just lost, the next Picasso. And the world's the one losing for this, right? Like, it's not only Black people, but it's society, right? So yeah, it's tough, man. But further on with this show here, they go to one of my favorite hip hop legends, Grandmaster Flash, the scientist, who's just creating stuff in the Bronx, right? Creating different ways, and again, this is someone, like you said, a stray bullet could have took him out, and he changed the game.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, he changed the game. But yeah. Do you want to talk about Grandmaster Flash, man? I'm getting
absolutely,
excited. So
I
might have to pass the mic.
Grandmaster Flash. he's the technician. He's the okay. So we got Kool Herc as the foundation. We got Afrika Bambaataa. That's the culture. Grandmaster Flash. That's the perfection. That's the technique and technology.
Yeah. This
man, he was just obsessed with moving parts. He's obsessed with watching things spin. He goes on to say that he would just spend time just watching bike wheels spinning, watching like the hands on the clock go around. Like, all of these things were just so interesting to him. That's probably from distracting himself from what's going on around him, right? Oh, I'm interested in all of this stuff. Meanwhile, yeah, there is, like, you can hear gunshots all the time. You can smell smoke all the time. You can't escape that. So the escape is, let's mess around with this a little bit. So here we have a young man going around collecting all these different pieces of equipment and putting them together, like kind of making a mismatch little home audio system himself, taking a speaker from the back of this car and taking an old record player and grabbing other record players just to mix up needles and stuff, like just to get some sort of a sound out of this stuff. But before Grandmaster Flash, there was two styles, right? There was either the blend, which like you hear on the radio station where they just kind of quiet down one song and then turn up another song so that it sounds okay, but it's still not seamless. And then you have I love this term that he coined, disarray in unison, right? Where you're just hoping that it works out. Right. It's a crap shot. I'm just gonna drop the arm of this record player, and wherever it lands, that's where I'm going to start, and then I'll start scratching and spinning, right? Like, disarray in unison. That's, like, the perfect term. So enter Grandmaster Flash, and he's the one that invented spinning without touching the tone arm. He was the one that took his little crayon and marked his, where the breakdown was. he marked that one line down the center. This is where the breakdown is. Now he would have his tone arm on and he would be listening. Okay, and so I know 5 revolutions is where the breakdown is. So here he just spins it backwards, 5 revolutions. And then boom, there it is again. Like you nailed it by saying he was the scientist. Absolutely. Like this man took it to a technical level. He turned the turntables into an instrument.
He absolutely did, man. And it makes me wonder, as I'm like listening to the show and listening to you, it's like, what would it have sounded like without this? It would have been like just a mess, right? Like you say, disarray in unison, where it's just like, okay, and there it goes again. Or you'd listen and then go back, right? Like, it just must have been such a mess, but the scientist comes in and says, "Here you go. Here's how you do it." And touching the records again was a huge no, a huge faux pas. But he understood that. Well, to get this, I need to touch the record and like you said, put the crayon down, put the mark down, and here we go. And oh man, game changer. And one thing he said too at the end was, not that. Give credit to other people of where they got to, right? Like everyone's talent gets you there, but it couldn't have happened without him, right? Without this science, and that's massive. And the 3 people we just mentioned, Kool Herc, Afrika Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash, in hip hop circles, they're known as the Holy Trinity, and that's some lofty praise, but I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. The accolades are all due in this situation.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was about DJ Hollywood. There's this whole big debate about who was the first rapper. Who was the first rapper of all time? And you can debate it, but one of the names that comes up is DJ Hollywood. What are your thoughts on DJ?
Yeah, well,
being the first rapper?
I would definitely agree that he was probably one of. Well, they said it best in that episode. He was the reason a rap record was even made. He was the reason why a rap record was even needed to be made, because people would just flock to hear this man speak. He's just smooth as hell, just talking over a beat. People would just come from everywhere just to hear that. It wouldn't even matter what beat is playing in the background. It's this guy's smooth talking, that rhythmic talking over beats, right? And I would definitely say, even though this man never made a record, even though he may not get the accolades that are due, without people like that, again, like let's say a stray bullet took out this man, would we even have a rap record afterwards? Probably, but it might be that little bit different that maybe it wasn't this at all.
Yeah, it'd be something totally else, right? Yeah, that's a great point, man. And yeah, I think like you said, he was the reason a rap record needed to be made. And I think the big debate about why he might not be the first is because he's quote unquote disco. He's wearing a suit and tie and rapping. That's not rap. He's not wearing Adidas sneakers like Run DMC, or he's not. He doesn't act like and be with the rest of us. But I think this debate still exists now. What is hip hop? What is rap? If it's disco, if it's rock, if it's whatever, if you're smooth talking, rhythmic talking over a beat, that's rap. And I have to stand by it, saying that he is the first.
Absolutely, no doubt here.
And then just jumping back to Grandmaster Flash there, the scientist going out, like showing other people his skills and playing, because he's doing that, he can't rap as well. So the whole idea of like the first kind of super group for rap, it was such an interesting concept. It was just put a mic down as I'm doing my break and as I'm doing kind of the work behind the scenes. Does anyone want to rap? Right? Like it's kind of that speaking competition in school that everyone has to go to, the spelling bee, right? Where everyone has a chance. If you want to enter, good luck. And
Yeah, buddy. That's the real beginning. Like that's where things started catching traction, right? Uh, it's talent attracts talent. So Grandmaster Flash is undoubtedly the one of the most talented DJs ever to grace hip hop. Enter the Furious Five. Well, these guys knew how to make a show. They knew how to have fun over the beat while they were doing their rhythmic talking. So they're out there. They're making that. That was the first show. That was the first like rock concert, rap concert. You know what I mean? Like that was the crossover. And they even dressed up with all those crazy outfits, those threads, man. Like, oh my god. Yeah.
yeah, for everyone out there, please Google the Furious Five and their outfits. Their wardrobes are just out of this world.
But performers, man. Like they were performers. They fed off of the energy of the crowd. They were able to engage. And I think that's really one of the big, they really were the ones to make it a show. And I think that came from, like that's where hip hop comes from, is that rhythmic talking over beats, that chanting, it was all about engaging the crowd. It was all about making people smile, laugh, respond, like saying something about someone as they're dancing in front of you. That was what DJ Hollywood was known for, right? Like he would make a comment about this girl dancing here or this guy over there, and whether it be funny or making a pass at somebody, it was to engage people, and then looking for the response, like who's in this place tonight, like South Brooklyn in here, trying to get the engagement out of the people, trying to make it theirs. That's what hip hop's about. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, you're 100%, because I think what hip hop started off was just the break and rapping about someone's car and double parked, and then it kind of got to more of a funny or trying to get the girl or whatever it was. And then it just became more of a engagement, a more performance, where Melly Mel even said, we wanted to be up here and the crowd looking up, and we want to look down at them, and then we, feel that energy, and it became like we've been saying crossover with rap and rock and rap and country. This is kind of that rap and pop where they're actually doing dances and they're doing stuff in unison, and they're, doing spins, and, like it went from just holding a microphone, pardon me, to it's bigger than this. It's bigger. Like we can make this bigger, and we can be that next pop star or rap star, if you will. Yeah, it's just in this episode, man, it was just so many things that built upon, that's just making rap and hip hop such a worldwide thing, right? Like I think it was it Melly Mel or Grandmaster saying, they went from one show a day to 2 shows in different states to 3 shows to now getting on jets to go overseas to, who would have thought?
Yeah, absolutely. And why? Because that engagement. That's why it got to that level. Yeah, and as you're saying that, it's no doubt that that this did morph out of disco, because if you think about it, some of the most famous breakdowns are from disco, right? So that's where you've got the development of break dancers dancing to the breakdown, that beat right in the center of the song. And then you've got these people, you know, like DJ Hollywood talking over these beats, and that's disco right there. He's talking over the beats. There it is, you know. He's taking that breakdown. He's doing his smooth talking over these beats. That's the development of hip hop.
And I'm so glad that we went back to this, the foundation, and now truly understand this is where, you know, because if you're going to build a building, you need some good foundation, and this is some great stuff.
You know what? The last note that I have on this one is they have not even made a rap record yet. We've gotten this far in the history of hip hop, and we don't even have a single rap record yet at this point.
No, that's right. And that's part of it too. I think there's something in there. Like, I love that last note, man, because the reason why you're going to see DJ Hollywood, like, clamoring outside to just hear him is because there's no other way. It's not like I'll just go buy his record and sit at home and listen. It's, I gotta be there. And like the Furious 5, you gotta be there. You gotta get a ticket because there's no other way.
Yeah, no, this is interesting stuff, man. I'm glad that we took it back to the foundation. I'm excited for the development of even this podcast. Like, here we are, we're doing it. How many times have we talked about hip hop? And this has just been a passion of ours, something that we've been able to come together on and just enjoy each other's thoughts and the things that come up between me, you, and that ether, right? That extra something that comes into the conversation when we're talking. Here we are, we're talking about our passion, hip hop, and getting down to the bottom of how do you make this thing? How did this happen? What do the blueprints look like on hip hop? And I love it, man. I'm super excited to see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we've been saying this for years, and I'm glad we're doing it. And even this episode could be called The Foundation, right? Like, because I can guarantee you, you know, a couple episodes in, a full year, because there's lots of good material out there. This podcast is going to develop into something very.
And you've got a good point there too, buddy. Like, it's not like there aren't things going on in our world right now with the pandemic and this and that. I'm not going to say that it's the same as, like, the Bronx burning. It's definitely not. It's a different type of social, like, presses or squeezes on us. But out of that, this is our way of expressing ourselves. This is our creative measures for getting out of our own heads. So no, I'm happy to be doing this, buddy.
No, I love it, and that's a great point, man. Maybe this is the next thing, right? The next big thing that comes out of it. We're both very, very excited, very creative, and
no limits, baby. Gotta do that Ric Flair drop with that too.
That's right. Oh, I love it. And thanks for listening along with us. We're going to be doing this for a long time and super excited, and hopefully everyone listening is going to be on the journey with us.